Okay guys, I'm here today with Brian Glick, huge honor for me. Guys, for those who doesn't know Brian is one of the first students of John Danaher, probably the one who spent the most time with John, because you were there for the very early days, right, Brian?
Yes, yeah.
And guys, Brian is filming a whole series that's called Under Pressure. So he already released the Under Pressure clamp. Second language. The under pressure clamp, the under pressure half butterfly, and now he's filming the under pressure leg entanglements. So can you explain a little more, Brian?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we began with the Under Pressure series because for so many years, when I was training under John and we were in the blue basement, I was usually a smaller person. And so there were so many times where people were stronger than me and bigger than me and more talented and more athletic. And I think that over time, what ended up happening was that I was able to develop some kind of understanding of how to, through John, of course, like to be able to use things like the clamp and things like leg locks to be able to control people a little bit better, but at the very least to prevent them from putting so much pressure on me that I was getting crushed and smashed. Because, you know, as with a lot of people who first get started in jiu-jitsu, I spent a long time at the beginning getting smashed and getting crushed and feeling like, oh, I was always under all of this pressure. People were driving in, putting a lot of weight, and I never felt like I had the strength or the power to be able to move people off of me. And as we talked about when we did the first part of this, the clamp, because I think that of particularly the way that John was teaching and thinking about jiu-jitsu, it was very much about how to get into positions where we can control our partner first and then look to off balance or then look to submit people. And that was really very important to me. And I felt like one of the first things that I wanted to be able to share with people who are learning jiu-jitsu, and then people even who have some experience, was how do you manage pressure? Like, how do you deal with a bigger person who's coming forward with the intention of body locking you or knee cutting you or staying on the outside and really putting pressure in with the upper body and stepping their legs in tight? And because I think that that's a very difficult place to be at the beginning, and depending on the people that you're training with, sometimes it doesn't get any easier.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So that was the reason that we started with the Under Pressure series. We began with the clamp because that was one of the very first things that John taught me, where I feel like the light bulb really went off. And I was like, oh, you know, I understand a little bit about where my body is supposed to be, how I'm supposed to be configuring myself. And finally I felt like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can do this. And then half butterfly 2 was something where I didn't really know very much about half guard, but I felt like I started to understand the concept of inside position because John was spending so much time working on it and developing all of the things that he's been teaching since then. And so half butterfly was another way of managing pressure and off balancing people and getting out from underneath. And the third element of that is really about leg entanglements and how we can manage people, not just through upper body or close range, not just through Kazushi and mid-range like you would with half butterfly, but what about when the person is standing over you or when the person is really using their legs to drive forward into you? So I think that for us, leg locks have always been very important, as you know, but really understanding how you can integrate different ways of controlling someone through the legs was something I thought was important for Under Pressure. So that's what we're doing now.
No, that makes sense. And while you were talking, I was thinking, like, I think no-gi is trending a lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
And a small person that does jiu-jitsu with gi, there's so many tools that they can use. They can use grips, they can use lapels, they can play spider guard, lasso guard. And then when it comes to no-gi, where are all those options that they had?
Yeah.
So I think it's great that you're exploring this kind of niche in jiu-jitsu. It's like people who doesn't know gi and have to understand to deal how to pressure because maybe they're the smallest ones.
Yes,
maybe
right.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the core ideas that we're talking about in this series is the idea of using your legs to get a connection to your partner. And I think that people who play all sorts of guards, De La Riva, reverse De La Riva, X guard, they're so good. Like the people who are really great, Marcelo is an innovator in this with his work on leg entanglements and X guard. They're so tightly connected to you when they're on the bottom that even if you're a really good guard passer, it's hard. I mean, you first have to kind of get rid of the legs, and then you have to deal with the problem. So it's been the case over the years that I mean, I've certainly found this for myself, but it really is through through studying with John and trying to absorb and learn as much as I can from him, along with Gary and Gordon and everybody else, is if you can form a really good, solid connection on someone, then you have a much better chance not only of surviving and having a good retention game,
but also to attack.
And I think that that's really, really important, even if you're a smaller person, to create a way of threatening somebody where they're like, well, a little bit less excited about coming forward.
Just attacking.
No, so that's been a very...
No, and I love how we organized the content, Brian, because you did like clamp, then half butterfly, and then leg entanglements. And I think leg entanglements might connect really well to half butterfly, right? Because half butterfly, you're ready to go underneath, right?
Exactly, that's right, yeah. And one of the things that we're focusing on here, there are so many leg lock instructionals, and John's original leg lock DVD was the one that I think really opened up people's minds, to studying.
You should change it a little bit after that.
I think so. So, we didn't want to necessarily go back and redo things that have already been done. And of course, there's been a lot of, advances in how leg locks are played. What we really wanted to do was give people basic vocabulary to understand how you can use your legs to connect to your partner, when you're supposed to do it, because, like, as you know, the context is very important. You can have the right tool at the wrong time and it doesn't work. And so really giving people a sense of which connections are most important, no-gi, and then how you can use your partner's stance and position to know which one to use, and then have some language that you can use. So, you need to be able to use sometimes de la riva, sometimes reverse de la riva, sometimes it's X guard, sometimes it's regular ashigarami, and really letting people start to feel comfortable and fluid with that, instead of necessarily going deep into, you're always going to use this grip on the heel hook, or kind of things that can be very, very granular, very, very specific.
Good. No, that's awesome, Brett. Can you demonstrate a little bit?
Sure, yeah, of course. Well, just two things. One of them is, to your point about playing gi and no gi, one of the things that we're working on is how we can make adaptations to guards that we would play in the gi and be able to use them in no gi. So an example of this is de la riva. De la riva, when we're playing with the gi, we have so many great ways of connecting to our partner. And you have, of course, the original hook that's here on the outside, but so much of the work has to do with connecting to the upper body. And so you have
belts, the sleeve, there's so many
everything. And so hitting things like berimbolos become so much easier, and you have things where you can start to pummel around. But all of these grips, if you try to apply the technique directly from gi to no gi, you'll find that the handles are just not appropriate. So one of the things that we've been talking about in the video is, yes, there are ways that you can start to control your partner's wrists and get connection to the upper body, and we can always kind of off balance our partner here. But a good person is going to make it very, very hard. So a lot of times we have to focus less on the upper body when we're playing no-gi and we're entangled, and more on the lower body. An example of that is de la riva, where most of the time when we're playing de la riva with the gi, this is the focus. But when we're playing de la riva with no-gi, we're often joining our legs into a kind of hybrid position where we have a hook on the outside, but actually we really need to be very, very conscious about how we connect to our partner's legs. So in a situation like this, maybe I used to like to play de la riva here when I'm working with the gi, but when we're playing no-gi, we need to find a way of forming a better connection. So in this case, we're using both of our legs on one of our partner's legs, and now we can start to use this to offset our partner's balance and look to move them out in this direction. Now, the other thing about de la riva is when we're working with the gi, one of our big goals is inverting and back exposure, taking the back. It's kind of hard to do that no gi. But one thing that is very easy to do is to take our leg and start to look to slip it through back to the inside. And now we can use this to begin to expose our partner's legs.
That's awesome.
So using the de la riva as just an example, there are some things that we don't have. You know, we don't have the gi, we don't have our ability to control upper body quite as well. But we do have the ability here, just rotate out this way a little bit. We do have the ability to use our two legs in a different kind of configuration where we entangle very well. And even if Placido wanted from this position to step forward and start to make it hard for me to knock him out in this direction, he leads us into other positions that are familiar to us, like X-guard. And out of X-guard, we have so many ways of going into the attack. We can knock our partner in a backwards direction, we can knock our partner in a forwards direction, and we always have opportunities, especially if we're able to get our partner's hands on the floor here, to look to entangle the legs in so many other ways. You know, a lot of people are using this backside attack, but essentially what we want to do is show people how you can use de la riva and reverse de la riva as a funnel, as a way of funneling the person to attack the legs, funneling them into an ashigarami. And I think leg locks for a lot of people, especially people who are transitioning from gi to no gi, or people who are maybe don't have a big background in no gi, leg locks are a little bit intimidating sometimes. I think it seems like there's a lot of technology and there are a lot of mechanics and grips, and it can be dangerous and all of these things. So one of the goals that we have for this video was to make it simple enough so that we can take a lot of different ways of getting in and entangling the legs and funnel them down into something that people can really use, that will help them to manage a lot of pressure, and that will form a really good connection. So if you want to sweep, you can. If you want to go straight ankle lock, you can. If you want to go and do a lot of more complex finishes, you can do those too. So our hope is that people will be able to use these tools to not just survive, of course, but to thrive and really get comfortable attacking and entering in on the legs. And so we have some drills and things like that that'll be helpful for that.
No, and I love this thing that you said, that the leg lock game, especially for who is coming from gi to no gi, can be a little bit intimidating. Right. It almost reminds me like math to some people.
Yeah.
There's many people that never even really tried. They just think it's hard. I don't know, numbers is complicated, and I think leg lock's kind of the same.
I think so.
And it's 100% true, because it's also dangerous when you're attacking someone's leg. You're also exposing your leg.
Yes.
So, and no, that's awesome, Brian. And yeah, no, I'm super excited about this one. And guys, Brian is shooting this entire instructional this week about under pressure leg entanglements, and it's going to be at IBJJFanatics.com very soon. And maybe by the time you're watching, it's already there. So make sure to check that out. And I think in this video, you guys were able to see how great of an instructor he is. I love the way you teach. Almost looks like a scientist here, because you talk slow and very precise. So this is very, very interesting. So thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you, Bernardo. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Was Placido. Please help me out to grow my YouTube channel. Just click subscribe. And to watch more videos, just click under see more videos. I hope you enjoyed.
BJJFanatics.com. Use the promo code YouTube Faria to get 10% off any instructional video. Improve your jiu-jitsu faster.